we can go, I think we can go live. We are at 6 p.m. Nairobi and 4 p.m. Amsterdam time. So great to see all you guys live today. Big welcome to Sarah, of course, first and foremost. Yeah, great to see you. So welcome to the Brand and Change Hangout. And I'm Anna Miltenburg. Most of you know me. I'm the founder of the Brandling. We train social entrepreneurs to build stronger brands. And I'm also the author of Brand and Change, the book. And in the past 5 years, I've worked with about 1,700 entrepreneurs. And one of the things that we pretty much see everywhere around the world is that people who want to build their ideas for change, they have a massive amount of challenges while turning their ideas into a scalable business. And most of what we see is that people fail not because their ideas aren't valid, but because they fail to reach the right audiences. So that's what Brand and Change is all about. But then I feel like what you guys teach at Growth Tribe is so relevant to actually put some of that brand framework that we help people create, to put that to practice. Because we really think that, the whole phrase of when you build it, they will come is just such a poison pill for anyone who thinks like, okay, I want to build something. I'm going to, cross my fingers and hope that it'll just spread magically. But we know that it takes a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. So that's why I'm super, super happy, Sarah, to have you with us today. Maybe you want to introduce yourself, as I know that you can do it better than I ever could.
Well, fantastic. Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining. So as Anne said, I'm Sarah Bacom. I'm one of the trainers here at Growth Tribe, but I'm also the product owner of our 6-week evening course. I got started in my growth hacking journey about 6 years ago when I started working with social enterprises and smaller NGOs based in Glasgow in Scotland. And I noticed immediately a lot of these organizations, they were all kind of struggling with the same pain. They had a minimum amount of resources to work with, and they had to really make everything count. There was a huge amount of pressure on the people to find out how can we make this work? How can we reach the right audiences? And so I started doing a lot of research into tooling and methodologies. How can we make this more of a structured process, actually? That's when I found out about growth hacking. And so I went through and did some training as a qualitative researcher, really ramped up my customer development skills, and then I came to work at Growth Tribe. So now I teach people how to actually have these skill sets and how to upskill themselves to be able to go out and gain traction for the organizations, whether you are like a one-man show or one-woman show, or you're working in a much larger company and team and still trying to grow your business.
Cool. So you have gone through a process yourself of acquiring these skills, and obviously this is really a field that's in flux. And what I noticed when we announced this session is that the first question we got from certain people was, what actually is growth marketing? What's growth hacking? How does it fit into the bigger marketing picture? Like really fundamental stuff. Could you kind of take us through the growth marketing 101?
Absolutely. So growth hacking what is growth hacking is one of the biggest questions I get on a daily basis. People messaging me on LinkedIn or just asking me after events when they come to one of our courses. And it's a really big buzzword. When you Google it, you're going to find thousands of articles talking about how it's like marketing on steroids, or that it's the new, latest innovative technique. Actually, it's a really simple concept. If you break it down, it's essentially a small group of people or a really lean team working together to be able to scale a business. And they do this using some data-driven techniques, really looking for how to set up tracking, how to read the analytics that they're getting, finding those small little levers and scaling the company through that. And they also look at how we can use tooling to automate certain processes or to increase your efficiency. So you save more time and you're able to actually work through a structured process to make all of this happen.
So what I hear you say is that this is not something that you do besides or after your product is finished, but it's something that you're doing in parallel, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We want to divide, or we want to erase, not divide. We want to absolutely erase kind of the silo between marketing and product, because you need to be able to understand what the product, what pain it's actually solving. And it works much better when you think about it as a holistic picture. So you're working through and actually identifying what's the pain, who's your audience, and actually how big is this pain. All of these different criteria are thought about to be able to scale the product or scale the impact of the audience.
And so for what type of organization is the methodology most suited? Is growth marketing something that, basically the bakery on the corner should be using, or is it mostly for online businesses? What would you say is the best fit?
Yeah, so I would say the only company that growth hacking absolutely won't work for is companies that are really resistant to change, that it takes months and months just to be able to make one small change on the headline of a website. You can work with growth hacking in offline, online businesses, even if you're a very small team versus a company that's a multinational corporation. Growth hacking can work really well, but you need to be able to have that mindset to be able to execute change and change the way things have typically been done. If you're in a traditional organization and you've been working the same process for the past 40 years, and there's a big resistance to change, to look at how we can do experimentation, moving away from campaigns, then it's very difficult to implement something. But if you have an open mindset, especially if you have this keen interest to explore, to do iterative learning, upskilling yourself, then growth hacking can work in pretty much any organization that's open to that. I think for NGOs and social enterprises, anyone based around impact, it works particularly well because those organizations are some of the most resource and time stressed. And that's what growth hacking is all about, working at a faster pace, but also working in a way that's going to reduce your risk overall. And so you can actually learn as you're going along, seeing what's working, kill an experiment that's not working, and you can move on to the next thing. And it brings more structure and more efficiency to the entire process.
Okay. Well, those are magic words, I think, for a lot of people that'll be on the call today, because yes, like being time stretched and budget stretched is like the understatement of the year. Often, you literally have peanuts to grow your audience. So, I'm really eager to hear more. So, when we've discussed like what would be really practical examples for people to be able to learn from, and you had a couple of cases that you thought were really relevant. So maybe could you give us an example of how who might be using growth marketing and how they have been using it?
Yeah, for sure. So we are currently doing a coaching project, a 2-month coaching project with Amnesty International Netherlands. We're working on one of their biggest online campaigns. It's not finished, the coaching project, and the campaign hasn't gone live yet, so I couldn't give too many details around that. But it's really interesting to see how an organization, especially as large as Amnesty, is able to look at those low-hanging fruits and see how we can make quick changes that are going to have a big impact. No matter what the organization that we train is, that's one of our strategies, is to look for the low-hanging fruit, or what's going to be quick and easy to change, but it's going to be having a higher impact. One example I can talk about more detail is Mr. Green. It's an electric car leasing company based here in Amsterdam. And a few months ago, we had one of their junior sales reps, Max, attend the course, the evening course specifically. And Max was really frustrated because their current sales cycle at the time was taking anywhere from 3 to 6 months. So it was taking Max anywhere from 3 to 6 months to be able to get a commission and just to be able to lease one car. So when we were going through the course, we started looking at optimization for landing pages, or how to make sure that you have really clear landing pages. So when you spend all this time driving a customer and a lot of resources driving a customer to the landing page, that it actually makes an impact there. And the landing page at the time had 3 different calls to action, didn't have a clear value proposition, and you weren't even really able to see what the unique selling point of this car was. It wasn't really clear. You somehow pressed that you wanted more information, that you would be taken to this page. It's full of copy, and it had a really unclear call to action, so it wasn't immediately clear to the user what to do next. When you clicked on this form, you'd be taken to a very long contact form, and then you'd have to go back and forth through email and calls, trying to arrange things to come into store. And the whole process, when Max laid it out, it just didn't make very much sense. There were so many different drop-off points where you could lose customers, and this played out over 3 to 6 months, depending on the customer and the specific car that they wanted to lease. So Max had the idea that he wanted to try to make a fully online self-service model. Essentially, someone would just go in really easy on a landing page, submit a contact form, and then they would be taken to an online survey where they would put in all the details of the Tesla or the electric car they wanted to lease. But when you started thinking about doing this, mapping out like all the different channel structures, cost structures, audience segments, it was going to take at least 5 months if he started trying to include everyone in the organization in this, much less having to tell his boss that he thinks that the website is awful and that it's really difficult to actually make a sale. So not that I recommend this in any way, it's definitely based on the person, but Max did the classic thing of doing first and asking for forgiveness later. Basically what he did, from learning the skills on how to create a landing page, how to automate a few processes, in 2 days, he set up a landing page using Unbounce with a really clear contact form and call to action to actually submit the contact form. He also set up Facebook ads that drove highly targeted traffic to this landing page. And once you submitted the contact form on the landing page, you would be sent an automated email using MailChimp that would have a link to the type form or the online survey. So then you could go through and actually see what you wanted, what details you wanted to include, and make this whole process happen within just a few minutes. So instead of saving the back and forth between emailing and the calling, and all of this just took him 2 days to do. So setting up the Facebook ads, building the landing page, setting up the email flow, and then also creating the type form. It only cost him about 130 euros plus his own cost of labor. And on the very first day he launched this, he actually got 1 sale, or he actually leased a Tesla on the very first day. And so he thought, okay, I'm just going to run this for 2 weeks to make sure that it's not just a fluke or a highly motivated person. And he continued to get more and more sales. So he took that data, all the results, the things that were kind of low-hanging fruits, easy opportunity to do. He took this all to his boss, asked for forgiveness, of course, and then he also presented him, this is what I think that we should do with this. This is the indication from this data that we should actually maybe put this on our website to speed up and see how this is going to make our customer journey a lot shorter and more efficient. And actually, his boss loved it. He was thrilled with it. And they resulted in over an 800% increase in leads for Max and Mr. Green. That's fantastic results. And then a bit of a happy story, but Max actually got promoted to the head of growth at Mr. Green as a result of that. So he went from being the junior sales rep to being the head of growth. And that's just more of how it works in the process. But it wasn't until his 6th experiment, actually, that he found out that this online self-service model was what's going to work well for them. Because growth hacking, it's all about failure initially, because you're just trying out a new process, you're figuring out what's working, what's not going to work. You're going to make a lot of mistakes, but every time you fail at something, you're obviously getting a lot of learnings. You're figuring out what doesn't work, and it's going to help you figure out what does work. And sometimes it will take you until your 6th experiment to actually figure out what's that going to be the breakthrough moment for you. That's kind of how more it works in the process.
So, for instance, I know that in the audience we have Freya. Freya is leading a co-working space in Nairobi, and so she might be interested, and she can talk about this topic herself if we're opening up the Q&A, I'm sure. But she's interested in gathering as many people as possible, obviously in Nairobi, who would be interested in joining the co-working space. So could you maybe describe like the couple of steps that you used to break down the process that Mr. Green went through? So you mentioned Facebook ad to gather the audience, that you point to a very specific demographic, I'm assuming. Yeah, and then you mentioned optimizing the landing page for that particular audience.
Yes, so you go through these steps. Basically, you're working through a process called the GROWS process. To be able to generate any ideas, this is your very first starting step. I'll share with you guys a link so you can go watch a video by one of our founders talking you guys through the process of it. Essentially, you're going to gather ideas about what is your biggest leak or your biggest problem. Where are you trying to generate attention around? You'll rank those ideas, outline your experiments, and then go through the work phase. And Max was going through the work phase when he was thinking about setting up the Facebook ads. So he had done a lot of customer research. He'd done some done some interviews with some of their audience members, actually just asking them how they found the process, what was difficult when they landed on the webpage, what were they struggling to find? Was it clear? Was it not clear? He also used some tooling to validate that the value proposition on the landing page and the unique selling point, the 2 most important things for any landing page to have, they weren't clear, and there wasn't clear next step as well. So you immediately identified, okay, that's a problem. We've got to build something else. It's a lot cleaner. So once they had the Facebook ads that were targeted for that new audience that he found, or the audience he developed doing some interviews, then they had the MailChimp, the automated email set up, and then the type form. The type form was really clean, simple, easy to follow, going through and selecting all those small details, thinking about not only from your interviews what people wanted to tell you upfront about the car, but also just from his own knowledge as a sales rep, what you need to include to make this process as seamless as possible. So it's all about going through thinking about what are your biggest problems, where do you really need to focus your energies around, ranking your ideas, outlining those, and then going through the work phase, and then most importantly, studying the results. So that's when you went through that, yeah, this is actually a really great process. We've gotten several hard conversions or several sales from it. And that's when he took the information to his boss to hopefully, and is successful in this case, get it through to actually be hard coded onto a website.
It sounds also like you really need to allow yourself to be quite vulnerable, because you're going to have to do that experimentation and kind of dare to make those mistakes.
Yeah.
If you're starting totally from scratch, so you don't have an existing network yet, do you have any tips for people? How do they, because of course Facebook ads is one way to discover potential users, but do you have any tips or leads for them how to start from zero?
How to start from zero, it's a difficult thing, and you probably have maybe one or two people involved in your team, or you're trying to do everything yourself. So one of my first tips is actually to make sure that you have a good problem solution fit. So there's a book I would recommend called The Mom Test to everyone. I'll send you also the link to the book. But it's just about firstly validating that you have the correct problem, or that you have the correct solution to a problem that you're trying to solve, or something that's going to be nice for your target audience to solve. And then you can go through, start going through the validation of this idea. And then once you're sure you've got product market fit, going through that stage, then I would start doing some competitor research. So it's also called competitor piggybacking in some ways, but basically you would do some research looking using a program maybe like SimilarWeb or SEMrush, looking and seeing what your competitors, where they're getting their traffic from, and then can you develop some sort of strategy to also get traffic from those same channels. So if you see that a ton of traffic is going to, who would be your competitor, maybe an indirect or a direct competitor, your audience, they're getting a lot of traffic from one particular blog platform. Can you do some content marketing on that particular platform as well to divert or borrow some of the traffic away from your competitor and go to you to start building up some traction for your audience?
The concept of competition is always, I feel, very interesting in the social impact space, because when I first started training people in this field, I would often get the remark like, yeah, but I don't have a competition because I'm doing something totally new, which in a way, so my point of view is always, okay, well, you always have competition because there's competition for people's time and money. So where is that competition based? But it is definitely, especially if you're building something completely innovative, it can be so hard to figure out, well, who is my competition and who is my audience. So anything that helps you to discover that, of course, is helpful. I'm just quickly Googling things and sharing the links that you mentioned in the chat. If anyone has any questions, by the way, you're really welcome to share them in the Q&A section, where you can type your questions, and we'll answer them as we go along. So you've mentioned a process, and do you guys teach like, okay, these are the 10 steps, or is it a process that is different for any different organization?
Yeah, so there's what we primarily teach is the mindset of a growth hacker, and then the process, and applying that process to the customer journey, or what some people might know as the pirate funnel. So the mindset is the most important thing. Think about as in terms of like a pyramid, that being the foundation step, actually being able to think that you're not afraid of failure, that you can do iterative learning, and you want to experiment to be able to grow the business. And then the growth process is that 5 same like circular process we teach to every organization. Everyone needs to go through gathering ideas, ranking those ideas, using a couple of different structures that we teach, how to outline your experiments. And outlining your experiments is actually going through a scientific process. So you'll have hypothesis, you'll have actually what is the validation criteria. If you are trying to run an ad campaign to see if this is going to be successful, what metrics are you going to use to validate this is a success, a failure, or maybe a back to the drawing board experiment? And then going through that work phase, and then studying your data and turning all of that data into actual insights that you can use to make the next round of experiments better. So that process is the same for any organization, whether you're small, big, you're just starting off, or you're a well-established company.
So when you talk about benchmark, I think that's a really interesting one, because within the social impact space, there's very little data. So it's really hard to say like, well, this is, I'm trying to create a game for change. My goal is, I don't know, 500,000 people. And therefore, when I'm doing my marketing, this is, how many people we need to reach in order to end up with 500,000 users. But those rates are really hard to get by. And I found it personally also quite frustrating sometimes to understand, how do you measure success? And especially if if you look at commercial organizations, for instance, newsletters have a horrendous open rate just because a lot of people are selling, crap, let's be honest. And so if you compare yourself to that, it can be quite easy to look quite successful, but that doesn't mean that you're actually making the sales. Do you have any tips for people? How should they think about their success?
Yeah, so it is really difficult. That's one thing I also find frustrating, is trying to find benchmarks for anyone around the social impact sphere. What is going to be good opening rates for you? What are good ad rates, for impressions, all of these different factors. And I get a lot of questions and concerns about this, especially in Google Analytics, like what is a good bounce rate, good time spent on site. And when you're just starting off, if you can find benchmarks, that's great. There are a couple of different agencies that publish yearly reports on benchmarks for the social sphere. But initially, it is kind of a toss of the coin until you develop your own historical data. And I always say, look back at what's important for you, what is actually going to see. So if you have a bounce rate of 86%, try to figure out what's going on there. That's quite a high bounce rate. So you can think about this as, are you driving the wrong traffic to the website, or do you have a UX problem or user problem going on with your website? And really looking at your own data and figuring out what is healthy for you. Benchmarks can be deceiving. They can be really helpful to give you a ballpark figure, but you need to know what's going to be sustainable for your business and actually what's going to be generating income, whatever the goal of your particular business is.
I'm just curious, is there anyone in the audience today who would like to put their particular venture as a kind of case study for us to kind of walk through? I was mentioning Freya earlier.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, Freya, if you would be interested in being our little guinea pig for the conversation here. If so, let me know in the chat window, or anyone else. Otherwise, we can continue to discuss. If you're interested, also please type in the chat what type of initiative you would like to you're looking to grow, so that we understand what kind of example we might be picking if we do so. Oh yeah, we have Freya. Freya's happy to do that. Freya, I'm going to allow you to talk. I'm not sure if you're in a position to speak, if you're in a noisy room, but we're just going to give it a try. Can you hear us? And
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, this is how it works here. I have to get permission. I was worried about muting myself and that you were going to see me, but
you have permission.
now I have permission.
Cool. Maybe if you can just explain to the audience, just really quickly in 2 sentences, what is the service that you offer?
Sorry, say it again.
What's the service that you offer?
Oh, the service that I offer. Yes. So basically, I run the Kijiji, which is a hub for social business in Nairobi. So by hub, I mean co-working, which is an open co-working space, a private office. We run events, which are supposed to be, now this is me being vulnerable, our events were supposed to be a way of us marketing ourselves. Mm-hmm. And as much as our events are really, really well attended, they don't really result in a pipeline of people who want to come and work from our space. Mm-hmm. And we do programs as well for entrepreneurs through consulting. So that's basically us in a nutshell. So I guess maybe for the purpose of the case study, it's good if I focus on one thing, right?
Yes.
So for example, what we have been trying is, my main problem is, where do I find my audience? I'm fairly certain that there's need for what we offer. So one of the things that we offer that's perhaps somewhat different from other co-working spaces is that we offer part-time membership, which means that you can be part of the community and get access to the co-working space for as little as $35 per month, which gives you the equivalent of 30 hours a month, which is like 1 day per week. I think what we've realized is that the people that spend $35 per month, they're also quite happy to just bounce as soon as they realize they don't actually have those $35 for whatever reason. Mm-hmm. So some of the challenges that we've faced is that I tried for many months to use Facebook ads, mm-hmm. but we didn't really we got a few messages through, but nothing that resulted in a sale or even somebody who wanted to come and visit and see it. Mm-hmm. So we kind of figured that the people that stick around in our business are the ones that are a bit further along. They're not on their own usually, they have a team. So there are at least 2, or maybe there are 4 people. So we decided to start offering team membership. So what I figured out before we started to realize who are the people that stick around, mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you're looking for more people in the space that can afford the $35 on an ongoing basis.
Mm-hmm. Yes, because they are the people that stick around for more than 1 month. Mm-hmm. Then I had realized that Facebook ads are not working for us, mm-hmm. but Google ads are working really well. However, I don't think anyone really looks for team membership at a co-working space. Okay. So now it's sort of, how do I market this team membership? Through Facebook ads, through Google ads, or maybe it's something completely different, or mm-hmm. through our events.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, I think that's a lovely kind of straight at you challenge for Sarah.
Yeah. So I was making some notes there. I have a ton of questions, but to start off, so to confirm, yeah, most of your current customers, they have a team of at least 2 to 4 people. So have you spoken to those people, done any customer development interviews, like asking how they found out about your service, or what? Also doing a bit more in-depth research on them. So where do they hang out online, and how do they find out about it? Or any questions or surveys on that?
Now that you say it, of course we should have. Maybe not formally.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But all of them have sort of come through referrals.
Referrals, okay.
Yes, some sort of referrals, or because they've interacted with us through different ways. But we only have, and that's our issue at the moment, that all our private offices are full, but our co-working space is empty. And we only have 2 teams of 2 people that really are the ones that are sticking around at the moment. Okay. So I guess we could ask them, but I wonder how much insight do you get from 2?
From 2 people, yeah, you can. It's always worth checking and seeing if there's any similarities. You can look at, there's so many different tools you can use here, but 2, it gives a starting point, but you want to eventually make this kind of more of an ongoing process when you get more customers, and think about maybe 10 people. And then once you have that, you can do some concrete surveys or interviews follow up. But for now, so if they come through referrals, it's difficult with only 2, but I would start just briefly asking them, where do they hang out online, and more about the information of the referral process. Was it a verbal referral, or did they send off a link? And then how did they find the navigation of the website, these kind of UX things? In terms of actually driving traffic to your website, do you have a lot of traffic coming, any high bounce rates? What's happening with your analytics, or do you have analytics set up?
The very honest answer to that is that I do not know. I guess that means I have not looked at my analytics.
No worries, that's like one of the most common things. People that they may have them set up, but they're not aware of that. So it's just kind of a general recommendation for you. Mm-hmm. I would firstly look at the jobs to be done framework. So here it's taking you through and figuring out what is the problem that you're solving for your customers, and you're putting together a more actionable version of a typical persona. So you're really looking at what pain are you solving, what are the push and pull factors, what are reasons that people would want to join on for a co-working space, but also some hesitations about that. And then this can serve as kind of a background for figuring out how to properly advertise this. So you're thinking about, you know that Facebook ads don't work well for you, okay, but Google ads are working well for you guys. Can you give me some more details around what you're using for the Google ads? Is it a text-based ad or a banner display?
For the Google ads, we are using a text-based ad.
Okay.
I don't know what else I can tell you about it.
Yeah, no worries. So it's text-based ad, and then it's going to your landing page? Or
no. So actually it's not. It's we're encouraging people to call us.
Okay.
So what we've found is that when people go to our website, we're actually not diverting people to our website, which maybe is good or maybe it's not. Mm-hmm. So we encourage people to call us because we find that once we have their phone number, it's easier for us to follow up with them, and it's easier for us to understand what are the decisions, or what are the things that are making them not commit. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the time, they may have needs that we don't necessarily. Different people have different preferences. So for someone, it might be really important to have a locker, and for another one, it's really important to have a big community. Mm-hmm. So once we have their phone number, and then we can call them back a bit later, we get to hear their objections. I guess that's the logic behind it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's really great to hear their objections. So you can already start creating a backlog for future developments or optimizations you guys want to include. And if you can figure out what the objections are, you can also think about, okay, so what's the core reasons why people would want to join this particular platform? So my general recommendations would be to maybe test having a landing page with some key features, some information, like a really clear landing page, something that only takes maybe half an hour to build. Don't put too much time into it. And then you can also have email address and phone number to schedule a call with you guys. But you can already start eliminating maybe or creating better quality leads. So if you advertise up front what you offer, and maybe some of those key objections you can already address, then to have those people who are motivated or better fits call you guys. Might be interesting to do as an experiment to see if it works well for you guys. I would definitely look at jobs to be done framework to give you some more structure. And then those 2 people you have right now, your audience that's being retained, I would still look and see if you can do a couple interviews with them just to figure out more about how they were referred. Because what you're going to want to do is, since you don't maybe have a direct competitor in the market, or an indirect competitor, you're going to be wanting to look at similar audiences. So people that are companies that have the same audience that you do, but they have a different pain that they're solving in a different product or service, but they're still targeting the same people. As Anne was saying earlier, those people, you still have to compete with them for your audience's attention and to be able to convert them into one of your users. So I would start investigating some of those aspects.
Thank you. If I may, ask about the landing page. So Mailchimp has been encouraging me to set up a landing page, mm-hmm. and I've been, it's on my to-do list to look at what exactly that means. What I don't understand is it then a landing page that I then integrate into my website, or I don't really understand what it is.
No worries at all. So a landing page is usually a temporary page that can change if you're running a new campaign or a special event, something like that, and you're driving traffic to it from an ad, from a blog post, maybe a shout out from an influencer, something like that. And then from this landing page, it has one goal to either gather email addresses, schedule a call, find out, request more information, something like that. And then after they complete that goal, say maybe it's putting in their phone number to schedule a call with you guys, then you can direct them to your home page after that if you'd like to. It doesn't necessarily have to go to your home page, but it usually is a nice flow for someone to then put in their details and then maybe go onto your home page to read more about you, or your main website. But the landing page is kind of a separate entity that lives there. You drive traffic to it, it completes that goal, and then if they want to, they can go to your website afterwards. Does that make sense?
Yes, it actually sounds like exactly what I need. So that's perfect. But what I don't understand is, where is it hosted? If somebody goes to my landing page, does it look like it's a part of my website? Or does it live in their email?
So it depends on what kind of landing page. The easiest way to build a landing page is to use a landing page builder. So one of my favorite ones, I'm going to send you all, it's called landin.co. This is basically a wizard, and you can quickly build something like for idea validation, or you can actually build a whole website with it if you want to, but that's a different issue. So this landing page, you can add your own logo, you can add your own color schemes to really kind of feel on brand with your home, with your main website. So if you click through to your website, then it looks the same or has the same feel to it, but it lives with the company that you built it with. So some other ones would be like Unbounce or Instapage, and they are what host the landing page. So you don't have to take care of the back end of it or any of the maintenance. The company does that. You just make sure that it looks nice and it's easy to be able to use for your users.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. I have a lot of homework to do, which is excellent.
No worries. If you have any questions, please feel free to message me on LinkedIn as well, okay?
Thank you so much.
Of course.
Thanks, Freya, for opening up and daring to be vulnerable indeed. So I think a lot of what I hear Freya say is really recognizable, right? Because you're in the kind of daily grind, and you have to run your business, and you have to get more customers, and this might not be the first skill that you're learning along the way. Especially I think in countries where it's tough doing the business, it can be really challenging to then also acquire these new skills. So thanks Freya for being our guinea pig. I just wanted to ask you about that particular topic, because a lot of us are stretching ourselves across a lot of different business activities, and so it feels like growth marketing is like, okay, that's one of the 12 things that I need to master. Would you recommend all founders to actually go and fully develop this skill, or how do you see that?
Yeah, so we get in our courses specifically, we get people who are C-level executives, they're founders, or marketeers, and kind of all in between. We even get people from operations and finance as well. And typically for founders, if you are not a person in execution, what's most important for you is to understand the strategy, working through that growth process, but also the mindset. So being able to see how we can move faster, supporting your team, and understanding that there's going to be some failures, but you're going to eventually get a lot of insights to be able to start working and getting some wins as well. So from a founder perspective, if you're not directly involved in execution, supporting your team, understanding the mindset, and helping ensuring that process is implemented properly. Now, if you're actually going to be doing this yourself, there's a ton of books I can recommend and send you guys on the chat. But it is kind of important to start thinking about getting the mindset yourself. And there's this one example, it's completely unrelated to marketing, but it's this example of this guy named Torko Kobayashi. And essentially first of all, does anyone know who Kobayashi is? Maybe anyone wants to say in the chat? I always get so worried that someone's going to spoil the surprise. But Kobayashi, on a very hot day on the 4th of July in 2001, essentially went from being kind of an unknown to being the world championship hot dog eater. He took a world record from being 25 hot dogs eaten in 10 minutes to 50 hot dogs eaten in 10 minutes. Now, I'm sorry if anyone has just had dinner. It's not the most pleasant thing to think about. But essentially, Kobayashi was just swallowing these hot dogs. You could see him in the photos. His competition is just struggling. They have no idea who this guy is. And he seems just like he's having a great time swallowing all these hot dogs. And basically, he got to this point of being able to double the world record because he dedicated a year of his life to this kind of single-minded focus. How can I become the world championship hot dog eater? That's what he wanted to do. And so that's how he started doing experiments, trial and error, literally hundreds of times, figuring out how he could make this happen. So he found out just by doing some experiments that the bioplastic coating on American hot dogs means that you don't actually have to chew them. You can swallow them, and luckily for him, he can actually swallow 2 at a time. And so he found out that, okay, so I can swallow 2 hot dogs, easily allows me to double that. But if you've never had a hot dog, they have these really dry, crusty buns on them. And so he was thinking, how can I solve this bun? Because it sucks all the moisture out of your mouth, and it's really difficult to actually chew. So he re-examined the rule book and found that it doesn't say what you have to do with the water that you're given at these championships. So he started pre-dissolving the hot dog buns in the water and simply like drinking the water after he finished swallowing all the hot dogs. So he was easily able to double the world record that way. And it wasn't making him physically ill or anything like that, unlike his competition that was struggling a little bit to eat all of them. And so Kobayashi did all this by thinking about how can I eat hot dogs more quickly? And that's kind of the mindset that we want everyone, whether they're going to be executing them, growth hacking themselves, or actually running these experiments, or they're the C-level or the founder, or just someone involved more in the strategy side, to understand that you have to have that kind of laser precision focus and think about how you can run experiments to be able to find what's going to be the solution to pull that lever of growth or solve your biggest problem at the moment. So I would get the mindset down first of all. If you're actually going to be executing on this stuff, you can research a little bit more like Kobayashi and then some marketing related examples to that. Then think about, okay, so looking at, if you don't have data or analytics set that up and figure out what is working well for us really well, mapping out what is your customer journey and seeing, okay, so we've driven a lot of traffic to the website. Our ads have really great impressions and really good click-through rates, but then people are leaving our website almost immediately. So then I would identify there's a potential problem, you're not driving the correct traffic, or that not a clear value proposition or unique selling point, as I was talking about earlier. So you can use a platform called Usability Hub. A Usability Hub is one of my favorite tools, and you can use it for all kinds of tests to run with people to be able to see, is your website clear? Does it have good usability on it? Doing a quick UX check. So I would definitely recommend that. And if that's all going swimmingly and you're having a problem more in the activation stage, your customers aren't seeing the value of your purchase service, then you can think about how can, if they're leaving really quickly after they've registered for a product, following up, doing some quick surveys, also going through the user journey from outsider eyes if possible, and seeing what's happening here, what's not showing correctly about our value proposition, or where are people not seeing the value of us, or something majorly going wrong. Just exploring that full length of the customer journey and then driving experiments around that, saying what the biggest problem is or what your biggest opportunity for growth is. That would be my top recommendation, to start working in that flow for you guys. And then if you need tooling, there's just a wealth out there. So just Google what your particular problem is, and you're probably going to have in the few first search results what some of the major tools you can use are to help with that.
Well, one of the nice takeaways about the hot dog eating contest, I think, is indeed what you're saying about focus. I think for a lot of people that we train, the problem is that they need to get clarity on the product and often have several different products running at once, and it's really, really hard. So I always use the analogy of being a little bit of peanut butter across 12 different sandwiches. And it sounds like the growth marketing approach is really demanding of you to be very focused on that one particular product, run experiments, learn, and then potentially apply that to all the other products that you're running. But I think that's a really great eye-opener. We had another person on the call, Patricia, who has a product. You can check out Little Bear Abroad. Patricia, I'm going to invite you to come as well. I know Patricia a little bit from our trainers program. Hey, Patricia, can you hear us?
Yes. Can you hear me too?
Cool. Yes. Perfect. So I see that you're building an initiative for foreign parents in Stockholm for activities with kids. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Very cool.
Yes. Well, the idea, our intention is for international parents of the expat community, what is to feel at home and comfortable and secure in Sweden. So that's one of our major users in our blog, platform, or website. But right now, our challenge is to find businesses that relate to our mission. Because I mean, for some companies, of course, the Swedish, the traditional brands, it's really hard to understand that the minority, as we are, is a powerful force monetarily in terms, financially in terms. So, and they also have a power to, how do you say it, to make a decision on the final shop. So, so it's like trying to convince them how this is so important, right? But yeah, so that has been our major challenge this semester.
Okay. So when you speak to people you're trying to do a partnership with or trying to bring them on board, what are some of their main objections?
First of all, because apparently in our space, I mean, in our little community, we are not that big. Okay. So for them, it's like it's not relevant when you are not just trying to, right now, we are trying just to reach right now Stockholm. So, but in the whole Sweden, expats that speak English are relative, like 60,000 people. So, but right now and the majority lives in Stockholm. So right now what we are focusing is in families in Stockholm, actually. But we have been increasing our numbers in social media and followers. But in order to continue doing our work, we need to not only increase our users, but also increase, of course, our revenues.
So one thing I think it would be, just looking at your website, would be immediately beneficial is to look at having some social proof and some testimonials. I don't immediately see that on your website. So you could gather a couple of testimonials from some of your user base and talk about the value that it's bringing to their lives. That's one of our mottos here, is that data levels all arguments, especially when people are a bit skeptical. Present them with numbers, facts, figures, or talk about the difference, the impact it's making in their lives, how nice this is to have. And you can have these testimonials or whatever you would like as kind of the social proof, because we naturally feel much more open to something when we can relate to it or when we can see that others are using it. So I would this, just it's a really quick thing that you can send out to your user base, ask them to fill in a short survey, and then they can get back to you and you can post some of these quotes on your website or give some numbers about how many user base you're having when you're growing. Adding some figures in like this, I think, would be really helpful.
Thank you so much. That's right, wide opening.
Yeah, I would also look at doing usability hub as well, a quick test with to make sure that within 5 seconds people are picking up on the value proposition of your website. I would do a quick test with that if you'd like. Or there's also a tool if you are interested in checking the user interface. So once people land on your website, they're exploring more about you guys. There's a platform that offers your first user feedback test for free. It's called Try My UI. And basically what you'll do is go through and make a quick test, just giving someone some general directions to go through your website. You'll see their screen recording going through your website, but also their audio recording. So they'll talk you through if they're finding this difficult to understand, if this wasn't really clear what to do next, and then you can see, can you optimize these different parts of your website as well. You want to focus on the small, quick, easy things to do as well, initially. So I would check that out for you, just a quick little usability check.
Cool.
Are you checking it? Thank you so much, Sarah, for the feedback. I think it's super valuable, and thank you, Anne, for arranging this amazing, interesting talk.
It's a pleasure. Thanks so much, Patricia, for putting your use case forward as well. This is great.
Yeah, thanks, Patricia. Cool. I think the example of Patricia is a really good one, because I mean, it sounds like the things that you're talking about, Sarah, are like really small tweaks that can have huge effects. And putting your growth marketing goggles on, you'll quickly learn to spot them on your own communication channels as well as others. Is this a skill that everyone can develop in your experience, or are there exceptions?
Absolutely. Well, the exception is that someone who is not willing to learn. But we have, the evening course, it's beginners, and that's where I spend most of my time teaching these days. And we have participants who come in, they've never used Google Analytics before. They may be involved in really old school marketing, but they've never used any tooling before. But they have such an eagerness and a willingness to learn, the mindset, willing to try experimentation, work through that growth process I've been talking about, and then try some of the different tools. And the difference between when they enter the course, the course is truly incredible. And so I don't think that there's anyone, unless they're resistant to learning and trying out new things, that's not going to be a good possibility to become a growth marketeer. If you're willing and passionate about trying to scale the business, trying different things and seeing what works, absolutely.
I'm just noticing that accidentally the chats have gone to me and not to the group. So I'm just going to share them here. That's usability hub and landon.co.
Or the landing pages. It's really quick and easy. But if you guys want other recommendations for landing page builders, I recently tested about 50 different ones myself, so I can give you a full pros and cons list of landing page builders.
Cool. How much time does it take for this methodology to bear fruits or to pay off?
It depends on the person and how much time you're putting into it, essentially. So if we have a rule of thumb, we generally say 1 day is rarely enough. Some people will come to our courses, or we're doing coaching projects with them, or they see us at a power session, whatever it might be, and they think, okay, I'm going to spend maybe 2 hours every Monday doing this. But that's really not enough time. You have to go through that whole process, gathering ideas, ranking them, outlining your experiments, and that time quickly vanishes. So I try to think about, especially for me or for anyone who's a busy working professional, as we all are, we all have some time in the day, a little bit of a buffer. And can you spend maybe an hour one day, maybe 20 minutes the next day, 30 minutes throughout the week, and try to budget your time? So maybe a little bit every day where you have some free time or some wiggle room. Spend that thinking about, okay, what can I do to solve this problem? Or how can I try this out? And focusing on those quick and small wins, you can quickly maximize that time. So starting off a little bit of time, especially in an organization, if you have to get some stakeholder buy-in. So you maybe have someone in the organization, it's your manager, and they're not really willing to give you that time. If you can use what time you do have and then show some results, maybe over a 2 6-week process, depending on how much time you're investing in, then presenting that data, we find that they're quickly given much more wiggle room as you continue to show wins, or that this method actually can be really effective. So it depends on how much time initially you want to devote to it, but I would say look at where you have some availability, some wiggle room, and start from there.
And I find it really interesting what you mentioned at the start is that David and his fellow founders, that they discovered that it was really hard to do this externally, that being in a team is really helpful, which I think is a lesson to learn also. As you know, I know there are quite a few people in the audience today who run creative practices like brand strategists or UX designers. So that's really great to know as well. I think the type of skills that are required in growth marketing are definitely feel like they're the skills of the future. Do you see this being integrated in regular education already, or is that still one step too far?
With regular education, like in terms of universities?
Yeah.
I do a lot of power sessions with university students, and I speak to them about what they're learning, and it is, and unfortunately, 90% of the time, it's really quite behind. It's still in the traditional style of working. That there's very little talk about how to automate a process, like how to automate an email flow or use an API to link different programs together. So I think there's a lot of opportunities there, and occasionally we do get someone who's more dealing with innovation and business, and they are teaching their students to go out and look there and have that kind of mindset that you need to really be open to learning as much as possible and finding out different tools to help you with this. But there's still a very long way to go, unfortunately. I wish it was a bit faster, but I think they're still lagging behind considerably.
Yeah, I guess one of the issues is that if you're making a 10-year plan for education, it's really, really tough to integrate something that pops up, yesterday and needs to be implemented tomorrow, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah. And the pace of technology and the tools that are out there and how it's developing, I mean, it's like light speed, and our capacity as human beings actually to be able to learn all of these different things and keep up with the latest is extremely difficult. So you have to think about really having that focus like we talked about earlier, and then starting from there. What do you need to solve this moment? And that would be one of my top recommendations. Don't feel overwhelmed by everything that's out there, especially if you look Google growth hacking must reads, you're going to find like 100 books. Just start off by thinking what's most interesting to you, that's going to excite you, but also what's going to help you with the current problem you're facing right now.
Well, that's a really good point, because I feel like one of the issues is not a lack of information. It's like finding the right information. And so I think that's obviously why it's great to have you online, because, you know, having a guide in this process is extremely important. Patricia is asking if there's levels in growth hacking. Patricia, do you mean levels of in terms of a profession, or levels in terms of complexity? Let us know if you can clarify the question. We have a couple of minutes left before we hit the hour. I'd also like to see if is there someone else who still would like to put their case in front of Sarah, now that we have the amazing opportunity to do so. Patricia has added, is there a level in growth hacking in terms of mastering the discipline? Like a black belt type of thing? For beginners and advanced?
Absolutely. So what we try to focus on in growth hacking is being what people call a T-shaped player, meaning that you have a wide area of skills, as most founders or anyone that's had to be a bit scrappier and starting their own business typically tends to have, but then you have a couple of areas of in-depth specialty. So you look at you can Google like T-shaped player and find some general overviews. And then the couple of areas of in-depth specialty tend to be around more technicalities. So when we train people, for instance, in our traineeship, then they maybe they're good at UX design, and they might have a little bit of behavioral psychology, maybe some copywriting involved in there, but they need to really increase those depths. So they need to find out what tooling we can use, how can we do better interviews, better customer development, increase the user interfaces, going into more technical skills that are involved in that. There's absolutely a whole wide range, and some people are growth marketeers specifically just for improving the UX design. So you can have a really high specialty, but we always want to look for how you can have a general overview of skills as well to be more self-sufficient. So you can easily get things done, even if you're not working directly on doing the copywriting for a website, for instance. You can pass whatever your suggestions are over to a copywriter, and you make that whole flow just a little bit easier and faster.
Is it also the case that you, like, if you're building a team, are you looking for a data person, a creative person, and a business person to work together?
So that might be kind of more of the typical, the hipster, the hacker, and the hustler growth team. It's still a really common group to have together. But generally, I would look, if your team already has those skills, that's amazing. My always first recommendation is, because it takes so long to get people who are a good culture fit or who just to be on board within a company, is to look how you can upskill your own team. So do a skill level assessment. We have one on our website. You can go through and it gives you some suggestions of where you can upskill yourself based upon different needs that are coming out. But just looking and seeing what your current skills are and how you can upskill yourself. So if you already have a little bit of a business background, how can you increase that business acumen to help you be more of the hipster or the hustler rather in a growth team, but definitely always going back to upskilling your own people wherever possible.
And Hadass has a good question directly in that vein. So when do you know how to do this for yourself or hire a professional to do it for you?
That is a really good question. My general advice would be to try to solve something yourself. If it's something like building a landing page, you can easily do that yourself. However, if you want a fully built, customized WordPress website, and you don't have the time to learn how to do that, and you've got 1,000 other things going on, and there's no one in your team who has the experience of doing that, then I would look at hiring a professional. That goes back to knowing really strictly what your time commitments are, but also the skill levels of your team. Maybe someone wants to rise to the challenge, but I would say that's only if they have a little bit of a background in actually designing websites and building them and some coding. So just knowing the skill level of your team and looking at how much time dedication something is going to take. And then if it's going to take way too much time, you have no skill sets for your team within this, then look at hiring a freelancer or recruiting someone to come into your team.
Yeah, I think this is a really important point, because one of I think the great time suckers of social impact businesses is trying to acquire all these different skills yourself, and spreading yourself really thin. So I guess several signs that you're ready to hire is that you don't have time. It's not working for you. You're frustrated or you're tired.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. Patricia, who's based in Stockholm, she's asking if there's anyone of Growth Tribe stationed in Stockholm. I know that you have links to all the different offices on your website as well.
We have Growth Tribe Sweden, and it's actually based in Stockholm. I was part of the first course that opened there. It was fantastic. But yeah, we do have some people in Stockholm who can connect you. If you just message them on LinkedIn, then I'm sure they'd be happy to connect you to the different people that they know in their network based in Stockholm, Patricia.
So if you go to growthtribe.nl, you'll see in the navigation, you'll see locations, and you'll be able to click your own flag. It's lovely little, I don't see so many flags these days anymore. Cool. Well, thank you, Sarah. Thank you so much for answering all these questions. It's been really, really nice talking to you. And also very generous of you, not just to offer your time for us on this hour, but also afterwards. So definitely recommend anyone to reach out to Sarah and to take a look at what Growth Tribe offers. I'd love to stay up to date on the different case studies that you're developing, like Amnesty International. I think for so many organizations that are trying to create change, it's incredibly important to get efficient and effective with their marketing. I can't wait to hear which human rights activists have been released from jail, thanks to 1 million more people coming through the pipeline as supporters, because these are the things, that's why you do it eventually. So thanks so much, Sarah. Everyone, we're going to follow up with you. We're going to share a link to the recording, a link to Sarah's LinkedIn profile, and of course all the different links that she shared in the session today. And also I'm going to ask you what other topics you might want help with. Is there anything else apart from growth marketing? I'm sure there's 1,000 other things that you have in your mind, whether it's naming, trademarking, whatever topic that is holding you back from unleashing that change that you want to see in the world. So really looking forward to doing this again in January on another topic. And see you guys soon. Have a really great start to the week, because it is Monday after all.
Thanks so much, everyone, and thanks again for your time, Anne, and for organizing this. It was really fantastic.
You're welcome. Thanks, guys. See you soon. Bye.
Thanks.